So far, our templates have allowed us to pass in data into our render template function, and within the template, render the data out. So for example, using this syntax, we can render out a variable name, which was what we passed into it. This syntax also allows us to evaluate arithmetic. So here 1 plus 2 will get us 3. And we also get 5 is greater than 8, so a Boolean expression will evaluate into false. So Boolean expressions in arithmetic. What we can't do is use Python functions, such as hello world. That would get us an error. We also can't use a variable declaration, such as x is equal to 5. So that also gives us an error. So we're pretty limited for now in terms of what we can do with this syntax. What if I had a list? Let's create a list containing the elements 1, 2, 3, and I pass in this list. What will happen if I render it out? So if I use variable name, the list is printed out as a string or displayed as a string. And if we have a look at the page source, that's exactly what happens. Okay, that's fine. Another thing to keep in mind is that variable name, we can also index our list inside of double curly braces. So there's one. Now the problem we want to solve is how do we how do we loop through a list? So I don't want this syntax to be printed out. I want the actual one by one element to be displayed. How does that work? Well, in regular Python, let's close our application for a moment and open up a Python shell. If we were to create a list, let's create the same one, 1, 2, 3, and iterate over it, we'd go using a for loop for some variable name. We can call it, let's say, item x. We can print out item. So this variable item, we can call it whatever we want, I, or another letter or another name. It doesn't really matter, it's our choice. And then we can print it out. In this case, we get each element printed out in a new line. Jinja has a very similar syntax, but in this case, we don't use double curly braces. We have to use a curly brace with a percent sign, followed by percent sign and the opposite curly brace. And this syntax is specifically for control structures, one example being a for loop. How do we write it? Well, it's the same way in Python. For your variable name, let's call it item. In variable name, which is our list. And now, inside of our loop, we've got every item stored in the variable item. We can display it out using the double curly brace syntax. Be careful not to just have item by itself. You still need to use this syntax. And unlike in Python, we need to end the for loop using an end for. So if we were to now refresh, well, first let's rerun our application and refresh. There we go. Let's surround them with header tags, which is what we can do with these. And there we go, 1, 2, and 3. So if we were to look at the page source once again, we can see the for loop has been removed and our header tags surround elements inside the list. So that is for loops in Python. And let's say, for example, we remove the double curly braces. What happens? Well, we get item just repeated 3 times. So it's important we still use the double curly brace syntax for displaying data. Okay, so that's for loops in Python. Last but not least, another control structure in Jinja is the if statement. So let's not do that, and let's pass in, let's create a number. So number is equal to a 5, and let's pass it in as y is equal to number. So we can access this variable as y inside our Jinja. So in our templates, let's say we wanted to, if the number was greater than 10, print out something. If it was greater than 5, print out something else. And then if otherwise we print out lastly or something else. So to do that, again, we surround it with our control structure syntax, which is a curly brace %. If y, because that's what we call it in over here, if y is greater than 10, we print out this is a large number. We can also have else if, but in Python it's elif, or in Jinja as well it's elif. This is a semi-large number. Now without elifs, we of course have to specify another Boolean expression, so let's just have 5. And finally, we can finish it off with an else. This is a small number. And just like with the for loop, we need to end with an end if. Okay, let's refresh our page. And there we go. This is a small number, which is what we get because we passed in 5. Let's pass in 10. This is a semi-large number. And finally, an 11 will give us this is a large number. That was if statements. Now let's return back to our so those are the two main control structures within Jinja we need to worry about. One last useful thing in Jinja that's worth noting is, let's say for each, instead of having numbers, let's say we have a list of strings. So let's have just some names, John and Sam. I refresh this page, I'd get Hussein, John, and Sam. Now, what if for each element in this list, I wanted to display each name, but with the first letter capitalized? Well, I can easily edit my data, of course, but in most cases, it's not going to be, I don't want to be manually editing my code. We could, of course, inside here, write a function that capitalizes each letter in our list. But again, that will leave our route functions, our view functions, being maybe overly large and complex, especially if it's a more complicated operation other than capitalize. What Jinja also has is what are called filters, which are special functions you can apply in our double curly brace syntax. So a filter is done using a bar sign, so shift backslash, and we put in the name of the filter when we want to apply. So for example, to capitalize our strings, we can just use capitalize, like so. And if we refresh, there we go. Each of the names are now capitalized. Now this is a special Jinja construct called filters. And if we wanted to see what other filters are available to us, we can have a look at the documentation, which is online, the Jinja documentation. And it also goes through a wide variety of different Jinja constructs that we can use that are not covered in here, such as macros, which act as sort of functions in Jinja templates. We can also have variable names and assignments in some way, as well as all the filters that are available to us. So there's capitalized, there's the absolute value, we can center values as well, we can do a dictionary sort, and so on and so forth. So if there is a filter you'd like to find, have a look at the Jinja template. But there are some also other methods for defining your own filters, which I won't cover. One final note to end on is this for loop doesn't just work on lists, we can use it on any other iterable data structure. Thank you for watching.